Well, hello everyone. This is my first ever attempt at a live stream. I've been on for a little while. I don't know how this really works. I imagine it's going to be recorded and pop up on YouTube. So even at the moment when I have 0 viewers, which my first ever one, I've only got 70 subscribers, it's likely to continue that way for a little bit. Hopefully it won't continue this way for too long, but I can start talking and it'll pop up soon. So if you're just watching this video at a late appearance, please do enjoy. By all means, click like and we'll see what news we've got. So I have just finished watching the first SmackDown of the BT Sport era, which for me is very good news because I have BT Sport. So I get to watch it live. That's a big deal for me. I've been a WWE fan for a long time, and being able to watch the shows live is very different. I first started watching in 1998. We would get a videotape that was recorded from Friday night's recording of Monday Night Raw, because Sky only got it on Friday, and then we'd get the tape on Monday. Lately, I just don't have Sky Sports. Sky Sports is very expensive. You're looking at £80–90 a month, so more than $100. It's not for me. It's really not. BT Sport cost me £7. That's about the same as the WWE Network. I'm going to take it. I don't know how long I'm going to be on. I'm going to try and aim for a set time, but if I don't have people coming in and asking questions, I will head out sooner, which I think is fair enough, really. It is 3 a.m. here. Wrestle Kingdom starts in 4 hours. I will be watching that. My sleep schedule is going to hell. I do apologise if the video quality has dipped from my normal videos. This is being recorded on my laptop, which is set up yonder. I don't have any notes. I am having to wear glasses, so I apologise if there's any glare there, but in case someone pops up, I've got my little feed of comments there, and I've got all the technical stuff below. Let's talk about SmackDown. So we started with the women's tag team match. We had 3 teams. We had Sasha Banks and Bayley, who actually have not been teaming up that often, but have been more in the background of each other's stuff recently. So it was nice to see them tag. They've worked on a couple of the tag team moves they used to do, and they're a bit more fluid now, so that's good news. We also had Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, who weren't really the story in the match here, but they still got to showcase what they were doing. And it did feel like a bit of a soft reset of the women's division. Everyone had a bit of a chance to shine. Everyone had a chance to get some of their moves in and really show what they were all about. Finally, the last team was Lacey Evans and Dana Brooke. Lacey Evans is obviously in the storyline and potentially a future title match with Bayley coming up. She has a match announced against Sasha Banks next week, so that is certainly interesting. Dana Brooke as well has been getting a little bit of a push, a background push, but a push nonetheless. So it's very good to see Dana Brooke getting some attention. She's actually the one who got the pin here. Sasha Banks taking the loss. Not a bad look for Sasha Banks at all. She was very clearly double teamed. There was a little bit of chaos at the end, which is always a good thing to make sure your top stars manage to come out looking good. But I think that's the real advantage of the tag format, especially when you've got Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross involved as well. They're able to add a little bit of chaos. And chaos is a good thing in a match like this. It means someone like Sasha Banks, of her ability, her talent, her position on the card, her position in the company, she can afford to take a few losses. That's good for her. That's good for everyone involved, really, because Dana Brooke definitely looked good coming out of it. Lacey Evans did most of the damage, but Dana Brooke with a senton that landed full on Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks is quite slight, so accidents can happen. I really do hope that it's not going to continue in that vein with the senton. Hopefully she'll just go a bit further. Practice makes perfect. Moving on, we had a number of tag team competitors wrestling in singles matches. We had quite a few backstage. Why is that happening? I apologise for the noise there. So we had quite a few backstage segments set up we had a number of people. For example, we had Mandy Rose in a brief appearance with Otis. We then had Kofi Kingston and Big E warming up The Miz for a match, walking around with some very themed pancakes. They said 2020. That was nice. In addition to that, we then moved on to an actual match, but it was a revival before that, getting some attention with Shorty G. So there was a lot of backstage stuff going on. They bundled a lot of it together at that point, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because right after that first match, things were still hot. It was quite a hot, fast-paced match to start with before cooling down late on as they did the standard heel, heat, and the hot tag. So break and set up the rest of the show as it went on. I do worry they might lose a few viewers though, because it did slow down from the in-ring action. In-ring action in general, quality was very high. So you had those segments in preparation. You then had Shorty G against Dash Wilder. I've only just recently learned which one's Dawson and which one's Dash. So apologies if I've got them wrong at any point in the past. I probably have. But we had a pretty good match. It was a very short one, and I feel sometimes short matches are better because they go all out. They throw in a couple of big spots and they don't worry too much about slow pace, build up, or building towards something. They just go at it a little bit, hammer and tongs. That makes me happy. That makes me happy. Shorty G came out with a win on this one, which isn't a surprise. Tag teams, you know? And then we had the return of Sheamus. There were 3 big returns on this SmackDown. The roster is significantly bolstered. But Sheamus was the first one. He had his vignettes, so it was very clear that he was going to be a heel. He briefly teased being a face. I think we all knew that wasn't going to happen. It's Sheamus. He doesn't do face, really. They tried for a while. It didn't work. Be a heel. He's a good bully. Bullying works. Obviously, I'm not saying that bullying works. He gets his comeuppance. That's a good thing. Heels should lose. We then moved on. After that, we had something with Otis wrestling Drew Gulak, who performed very, very well. He gets squashed quite a bit recently, Drew Gulak. Since moving to SmackDown full-time, he's been enhancement talent, but enhancement talent of the highest order. And he can really draw the eye and draw attention by doing that. There's nothing wrong with being an enhancement talent, especially when you're putting people over to the level that he is. He once again was not able to do his screenshot and his slideshow and his PowerPoint presentation. I just want one full PowerPoint presentation. But yeah, he got a bit squashed. There seems to be a storyline brewing, a feud between Otis, who was very well received in this match, got a lot of cheers, and Dolph Ziggler. We could be seeing Ziggler and Corbin moving into a feud of heavy machinery. I'm okay with that. That's a good feud. You could throw in the New Day and the Revival and make it a fatal 4-way for some big WrestleMania match, but I think the women's tag titles are going to be the big fatal 4-way there. Who knows? Next up, we had The Miz and Kofi Kingston. This was pure character storytelling, which is great because you've had a couple of matches. You've had a semi-squash. Gulak did get a few shots in. And then you have something which is just storytelling. The match itself, nothing much to write home about, but the storytelling in it, The Miz getting more and more frustrated, Kofi Kingston continuing to be so light-hearted. This is really good characterization, which The Miz has been working hard at recently. You've had his match against Bray Wyatt, which was all character work. I was not wanting to see The Miz go back to a heel, because I don't feel his face turn has had a good shot. However, if this is the way to get him back on TV, all power to him. It's The Miz. I like him. I want him on TV. I also want his suit. Very, very much. The man just knows fashion, and I want more of that. The Miz did lose the match, roll up, so there was an element there where you can't necessarily say the better man won. And then he made a not so shocking heel turn. I think they built it well enough that you knew it was coming. Kofi got a bit of a beatdown. Big E ran in to save him, and The Miz fled the scene. like I said, the face turn didn't really have a shot for me. He wasn't used though. So for his time on SmackDown, yes, he's a heel again, but at least he's got a place on the card. Hello, Guinness Gamers. Happy to see you. I've reported a couple of times I have absolute confidence Roman Reigns will definitely be winning the Royal Rumble. I'm pretty sure. It's not necessarily the wrong time. I think he's in a good spot for it. I think he'll have a good match with Bray Wyatt. I'm excited to see it. But to be fair, I also don't think he'll win at WrestleMania. I've bet against Roman before. It rarely works out well for me. But I'm betting against him this time. When it comes to the Royal Rumble, though, I'm definitely betting with Roman Reigns. I've been going through a rundown, so I'll continue with that. By all means, ask any more questions you may have, because I need some life in here. We moved on, I was talking about The Miz, and so we moved towards the final two matches. We had Braun Strowman taking on Cesaro. They could have done more with this. I wanted to see Cesaro really show his strength, but he was very much taking up a role and doing a job here. Braun Strowman got to show a bit of vulnerability. That's different, and that's necessary. Strowman doesn't show a lot of that, so having interference from Zayn, having interference from Nakamura, finishing on a very strong spot for Nakamura with the Kinshasa. Strowman sold hard. You need to bring him back down to a realistic level now, because when you get too big, you have a shelf life, and it does eventually run out. Good showing for Strowman, good showing for Nakamura, good showing for Cesaro. My only job is not as a wrestling journalist. I do have a full-time 9-to-5 day job, which I don't go into detail about it because that's personal life and I don't want to go into too much detail about that. But yeah, I work full-time and still manage to do everything I can for wrestling journalism and write novels as well. I've got a couple on Amazon that are downloadable onto Kindles. So yeah, I work pretty hard. Yeah. I always laugh when people say they've got no time to do things. Well, I work 2 full-time jobs. I would love to go full-time with wrestling journalism. That's sort of the aim. I've been writing myself a little plan. I've been doing well out of Daily DDT, Sportskeeda. They've been very good to me. It's not full-time equivalent, though. My hope is one day. Fingers crossed. We had one more return that I've not quite mentioned. That would be John Morrison. I didn't mention it because it was kind of underwhelming. It really kind of was. He was there in the Miz's dressing room, and he said the Miz will not be answering questions right now. Underwhelming is not bad. I want to say that. There's nothing wrong with underwhelming, especially when you consider the amount of returns that we had on this show. This was definitely a show that popped. And it drew attention. I expected more like for the BT Sport debut, but we had what we had. So Morrison did return. It was not in ring. It was just a brief appearance. Potentially, he may be still under a no compete clause. There will be flubs and outtakes. This is live. I don't necessarily think Cesaro, Zayn, and Nakamura need a stable name. I think too much stock is given to stable names to give them that joint identity. I think Sami Zayn does give them that joint identity, but it's not wrong to have a diverse group. Like, you've had times in the past, the Nation was supposedly united under a certain banner, and then they evolved as a group, and the Nation of Domination became less orientated as it was. Evolution was supposed to be the idea that it would be past, present, future, and then suddenly the future was wrestling the past and the future were tag team champions. So it's hard to say how that worked out, but if you'll excuse the pun, it evolved. So I don't think all stables need stable names. They don't necessarily need that joint identity. And to be fair, I'm still not entirely sure why Cesaro is teaming with Zayn and Nakamura. From what I can tell, it first happened in Manchester when they did a SmackDown there. I was in a round table with Cesaro the day before. On the day, sorry. And I asked him, do you see yourself as a tag team wrestler or a singles wrestler? And he said he enjoyed tag team wrestling, but wanted to be back in the singles scene. Literally, the show that night, he was back wrestling as a tag team. So I would imagine he hadn't been told that at the time, or his answer would probably have been quite different. We will see going forwards. I think at this point it's just to get Cesaro on TV. There's nothing wrong with that. Our main event for SmackDown was Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan against Dolph Ziggler and Baron Corbin. Once again, still no idea why Dolph Ziggler is aligned with Baron Corbin. Genuinely no clue. Also, no on-screen reason for Bobby Roode not to be there. There's a lot of not explaining going on. Not necessarily a bad thing, but when it happens this much, it does start to impact my enjoyment of the product. I'd like to at least know what's going on with Ziggler. Maybe. But the match was, of course, perfectly serviceable. We've got 4 very strong workers in the match, so it's always going to be. Corbin managed to hit his deep 6 and it looked glorious. When you get someone the size of Roman and you manage the deep 6 so beautifully, you can't complain. It's just a beautiful looking move. Shame he didn't at End of Days. Also a good move. Bryan was distracted, as you might expect, by The Fiend and his tape recordings. He did a lot of laughing in the background. He gets attention. At least it wasn't a big red light. I don't think any of us wanted to see that. So we had that. He eventually would be taken out of the match by The Fiend attacking, just as he was hitting the, was it Psycho Knee? I'm not sure. He's been out of action for a long time. And he's done a lot of matches with submission moves. Nothing wrong with that. Also, it shows kind of Daniel Bryan has been doing a lot of losing in the build. He's had a lot of really big losses, which has really put people over. The start of Coffee Mania, for example. And of course, The Fiend. He's doing a lot of good work at the minute to put other people over, and that's a good thing. He did that with The Fiend. He did a little bit of that with Corbin and Ziggler. Bryan was taken out of the match. The Fiend did a disappearing act, leaving Roman Reigns on his own. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is Roman Reigns. Of course he can beat 2 men on his own. And I'm sure he would if given the opportunity. Unfortunately, he was handcuffed, and he would have had a lot of dog food poured on him, but then the Usos returned. Followers of my YouTube will, of course, know that I reported this a couple of weeks ago. The Usos were to be returning before the Royal Rumble to build towards a WrestleMania that they will definitely be a part of. They will definitely be in the tag scene for that. We could get the New Day versus the Usos at Mania. We could get those two and the Revival, which I think could be a very good match. But then what do Heavy Machinery do? There are suddenly a lot of very good tag teams on SmackDown, whereas previously there was a real dearth of them. New Day was kind of the only thing really kicking into gear. So now we've got all 4 of them having their own distinct, separate storylines, which is great. That's what the Revival were looking for. This is one of the reasons people are telling me that the Revival are likely to be signing again and continuing, because the tag scene is being given a lot more focus. The Usos are back. They are teaming with Roman Reigns, at least in some capacity, a return of the Bloodline. I would imagine that means Bobby Roode is due back fairly soon, and we'll build towards a 6-man tag match at Elimination Chamber or Fastlane, whichever one happens there. All storylines pretty much stop for the Royal Rumble. We'll probably have at some point Roman and Corbin squaring up in the Rumble, but when it comes to the Royal Rumble, all storylines basically end, so that they can have little allusions to them, but nothing key for the Royal Rumble. The exceptions to that, Daniel Bryan against The Fiend, because Daniel Bryan has been taken out of the Rumble for that match. Always important for someone of Daniel Bryan's popularity, of course. But we will see what happens going on. When it comes to SmackDown, there was lots of very good in-ring action. There was a couple of short but telling characterization moments, some backstage, one in the ring for The Miz. I think there were a lot of returns, so a couple of moments that really popped the crowd, and variation in those returns. Sheamus doing what he did. The use of John Morrison, which in a vacuum seemed quite underwhelming, varied what he was doing from what everyone else was doing in their returns. And I'm very glad to see the Usos back. They always put on very good matches. They always put on top quality. And they do belong in that WWE ring. We will see how they are used in the coming weeks and months. And of course at WrestleMania. I would give this SmackDown a B rating. They could have done more with the action. I expected a bit more from Cesaro Strowman. I do feel the Fiend's appearance was fairly predictable. Could have been a bit more. But I'd like to see him just attack everyone, to be honest. But maybe that's just me being greedy. And there was a bit of a slow period where there was a lot of backstage stuff and not much going on in the ring. I'm glad we got an Elias segment. Big fan of Elias. I do feel he has a lot of charisma, but unfortunately he just doesn't have a storyline right now. He might still be nursing an injury, and this is a good way to get him on TV, brief segments. So I think there was a lot of good, nothing that I would really call bad, but some things that could be a little bit more. So I would give it that B rating. I think it was a good show for the beginning of the year, and after SmackDown hasn't been particularly strong over the last couple of months, I think it's a sign that they're heading in the right direction. Please let me know what you think. Send me some comments, send me some likes, send me some questions on Twitter at Colohue, Colohue. And to end on a more personal note, the last video that I uploaded in the first 24 hours broke all records for everything that's been going on. So things are going extremely well. I'm not far off 100 subscribers, which is what I need to be able to name my channel. I'm excited for that. So thank you to everyone who has been commenting, has been liking, has been watching, and has been subscribing. This isn't obviously a news video, this is instant reactions and a bit of a review, answering a couple of questions. Thank you very much for coming in, Guinness Gamers. Hopefully in future there'll be a lot more people coming in, but it's late on. I think a lot of people will be taking a nap right now before Wrestle Kingdom, which I will also be watching. So